during this pandemic, in hopes that he can give us some insight as to how he's been able to operate through a situation that none of us expected. And so without further ado, let me bring on board. Hello, Evans. How are you?
Good morning. Good. Thanks for having me this morning.
Thank you so much for joining me. And I do apologize again for not changing that description. I will make that right, I promise. So again, tell us who you are and what you do.
Okay, so as you mentioned, Evan St. Fort with St. Fort's Funeral Home, family-owned company. We've been in the business now for over 25 years. My father started overseas, and when I say overseas, I mean Haiti. We owned 3 funeral homes there, and after my father started his funeral homes overseas, I said, why not just continue the progress? And so I decided to open up one down here with my family in North Miami Beach. And I've been here in North Miami Beach now for 16 years. And we're currently working on another location up north, which should be open pretty soon. So funeral business is our primary specialty. My father is a serial entrepreneur. So before this, we were also in the shipping industry, dry cleaning industry. We actually owned a body shop. So we've dibbled and dabbled in a lot of different industries, real estate too, but our specialty is funeral services.
Are many of those businesses still afloat, or are they a scenario where you sort of closed one and went to the other?
Right. So the businesses that we're currently still active in is the real estate primarily.
Okay.
We own beauty salons and the funeral businesses.
And that's in both here as well as in Haiti?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. Really good. So you're moguls.
Whatever you want to call it, we work hard. We work hard.
Exactly. Exactly. I understand. Well, I was very interested when I spoke to a friend of ours, Yvette, when she mentioned that you are a good friend of hers. And we've been talking to businesses who are right now struggling and confused and going through some things. I would imagine in your line of work that may not be your challenge per se, in terms of wondering where your clientele is going to come from, unfortunately. But there may be some other challenges that you're facing right now in your business. And so I was very intrigued to be able to talk to you about some of those challenges. I believe in my home state of Georgia, there have been several funerals where there has been some concern that the outbreak started as a result of funerals. So what types of operational changes have you had to make in terms of the ceremony, how you pick people up from the hospitals within your corporation to really stay on top of what's needed here?
Right. So things have definitely changed. And fortunately, like you said, with our industry, we haven't been affected directly in terms of, been in a bad situation. The difference is now, like you were saying, is because of the requirements from the CDC. They're requiring, of course, if anyone is interested in having a funeral service, they would like for maximum amount of people to attend is 10. The other precautions that we're taking is for the individuals that are working here in our offices, of course, we're all wearing protective equipment in our morgues, which is also required either way. If we do get a call and the hospitals tell us that the individual passed away of the virus, then of course we're wearing full moon suits. And also what we're doing with our families is instead of having them come into the office and make the arrangements, we're doing just about most of everything virtual. So
very interesting.
They don't have to come in. They can meet with us virtually. And then we can do everything via computer and have them sign forms without them having to print forms. So that's been working out tremendously for us. Unfortunately, what you guys are seeing out there is real in the terms of people are definitely passing away. of this virus because we're seeing it hands on. We've currently already, I would say, we've had at least now maybe about 8 individuals that we've had here that have passed away from the virus. And one of our cases specifically had came in from New York. And as everybody knows, New York is in a bad place right now. And picking that individual up, trying to get him out of the hospital was like a mission and a half for us
Right.
because
I could
we're
imagine.
so busy over there that it was hard to get any of our partners to assist us. But luckily, we did get them in.
Mhm.
But again, I'm just saying this just to kind of enlighten our community and let them know what's really going on out there.
Well, they were talking about our community being hit the hardest. So I
Right.
can only imagine that that has been, and in many cases, as I mentioned, from funerals or church ceremonies or, something that you would expect people to do day to day. And now you're in a situation, or families are in a situation where they're having to call on you with regards to services. So in the past, I know funeral directors, pastors have been people that during this time families lean on and need a little guidance and support and need you to hold their hands in certain cases. You can't do that right now. So what kind of measures are you looking at now to try to really ease people's concerns, emotions that they're going through right now, from a safe distance? Um,
Right.
that it's a new normal. So
Yeah, yeah. So, like you were saying, it's really tough out there, even for us, being that we do this day in and day out. Because, when you get the call from a family member that says, I'm stuck in New York and my sister's passed away here, and I can't fly down there to do anything, and I'm the only responsible individual to handle everything, and then they're just crying out there asking you to kind of like console them, is tough because I'm actually dealing with a client exactly dealing with that situation. Her sister passed away here. She's been here in our care for over going on 3 weeks. And the problem is her sister
um,
hasn't been able to leave New York to complete everything because if she leaves New York, she would have to be quarantined.
okay.
Uh, and so, the restrictions in New York right now are a little bit, you know, just strict in terms of what it is she can do. So, as far as how are we helping families with this situation, the only thing that I've been able to do now is offer live stream services, uh,
Okay.
and that has helped because for those individuals that can't come and see the service, then they can virtually see it as the service is technically taking place,
Mhm.
and they can do that all through our website. So that's one way.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah,
Um,
like you were saying, it's just really tough. I mean, um, trying to figure out what's the best solution for these clients, in terms of like getting through this, because even trying to, go to the hospital, if someone has the virus, you can't go to the hospital and visit any of these.
Absolutely.
So the calls that they're getting is, hey, I'm sorry to let you know, but your mother passed away, and
Right.
it's time to call the funeral home. And
Exactly.
they never, and they hadn't seen their mom for 3 weeks.
Right. Right.
Call,
And they still can't in
right,
some cases, and they still can't. So,
right.
so that's got to be really tough.
Yeah.
Some of these operational changes, you mentioned the CDC. At what time did some of these new mandates and operational structure requirements come down, and how did those conversations start? Did they start as a result of some things that were going on in the industry, or were you sort of ahead of the curve in understanding how things were going?
So, with me, I'm part of some organizations where we consistently meet every single day just to kind of like be on the in with whatever's going on.
Mhm.
So, at first there was a restriction of 50 individuals that can come to a
Mhm.
service,
I remember that.
and early April, they changed it to 10. I'm not going to say that as a result of that, it came because someone got sick from attending a funeral service.
Mhm.
I think it was just, state requirements and them trying to just do whatever it is they could do to kind of reduce the risk for anybody else.
Okay.
And even in this situation where there's 10, families and the guests are still very afraid of participating because
Right, absolutely.
they're just, everybody's kind of like scared at this point. So
Absolutely. And don't want to slip in a myth. I want you to clarify it if you could. There
okay.
has been some speculation as to after a person has passed on that the coronavirus is still live and active. Is that true? And I just wanted to make sure we put that on the table because there are some yeses and some nos.
Right. So, the real answer to that is when someone passes away, in terms of there are bloodborne pathogens that can still exist, right? So,
Mhm.
an example of that is if someone had like HIV, AIDS, or if someone had a TB, those things can still be transmitted
Okay.
from death onto someone else. Now, with the virus that we're currently dealing with, not all of us really know exactly the situation. This is kind of like still a developing story day by day. So I
Absolutely.
can't tell you 100% for sure when someone passes away, is it transmittable? But for the most part, when someone passes away, viruses do not exist. Usually, within 24 to 48 hours, a virus cannot survive in that individual's body.
Okay.
But what we can do on our end to confirm that the virus will not exist is embalming.
Okay.
So, whenever someone comes to the funeral home, if the family wants to have any sort of a visitation or view the individual, it is required that we embalm the individual at this point. And what that is a way to protect the public, right?
Okay.
And then embalming is a preservative to preserve the individual. So us
Okay.
doing that will definitely confirm that you have nothing to worry about.
Okay, good. That's good to know. So let's go back to business for a second here. I heard you talk a little bit about the family member who has been able, who has had their family member there for 3 weeks. Sorry,
3 weeks.
3 weeks. Um, I started thinking about expenses and not get into particular numbers, but have you found that in circumstances where you're not able to operate and function in the normal way possible, trying to work around family schedules, more cleaning, I'm sure is required, certified cleaning of some kind is required. Are you finding that your expenses are going up? And if so, what are some ways you're trying to figure out how to manage that through this time?
So for us, I couldn't say that our expenses are really
Okay,
going up.
good. You're able to manage it.
We were already handling our business this way to begin with. So, what I mean by that is we have a cleaning service that comes just about every week. And then we actually have a full time cleaning crew that is here on site every single day.
Okay.
This is how we've always operated. So,
Oh,
for
good.
us,
Good.
we haven't been in a position where we're spending any money. The one thing I'm sorry, we're not in a position where we're spending more money. The one thing I can say is our clients, of course, because of these situations, they're not prepared for them. So when they do get the call that, hey, my mother passed away or my brother passed away, it's like a disruption for them because who had already thought my 40-year-old brother was going
Right.
to pass away?
Right.
So then it puts the family in a financial bind where they're now having to figure out what are they going to do about this. So
Absolutely.
I would say most of our clients are the ones now that are suffering with figuring out how to handle this stuff financially.
Okay.
And one of the things that we do offer here at our funeral home is I've offered we offer financing now. So
Oh,
even
good.
if someone does pass away, and let's just say you don't have the funds, we will help you to finance it so that you don't have to worry about coming up with all the money at one time.
Good. Very good. That's nice to know.
Yeah.
So you talked about cleaning. I do want to ask, are they requiring some certifications in that realm? Are you having to do some things differently? But again, or it's kind of regular as you have been operating, no additional training required.
Yeah, no additional training required, just making sure we take the precautions that we've been taking currently.
Now, have you been able to maintain your staff? I know many of our businesses have had to make some adjustments, but it sounds like you've been able to maintain your staff.
Yes, yes, I'm thankful
Okay.
for that. We've
Absolutely.
been able to maintain, and actually, we've kind of hired a couple of more individuals that were working part-time, and because they've lost their jobs, we went ahead and had them come in with us full-time just to kind of help them out. So,
Good.
um, everybody at this point, is dealing with a loss of income, and we're trying to do our part here to help some people out too.
Absolutely. You said you're opening up a place in Fort Pierce. Has this
Mhm.
pandemic slowed that process down or accelerated it even more so considering?
No, not necessarily. We were almost pretty much done with that project,
Okay.
so this is not really affecting that situation up north.
Okay. Are you looking at other sites at this point and maybe accelerating that plan of attack?
You mentioned business and entrepreneurship, and as an individual that's into business and entrepreneurship, we're always looking.
Okay.
Um, so we don't have any other plan as we speak right now, but the goal is definitely if we can continue to grow, then that's the plan.
Okay, good. And this has not stopped because we've talked a lot on this show about people thinking about their pivot plan, shifting and adapting and doing some things differently. As a matter of fact, this show is an example of that. So, I am interested since you're not necessarily having to pivot. What has this made you accelerate in a manner of speaking, and what are some of those changes operationally that you think you're going to keep? Now that once we get past this and we're back to a level of normalcy, what are some of those newly formed implementations you think you'll keep anyway?
Gotcha. So, here's the thing. With business and the way I function,
Hmm.
I've always been forward thinking, meaning I'm always looking for the next best thing in terms of what's good for our business. Because
Hmm.
for me, I want to make sure that when our clients come, I'm able to provide them with added value and things that maybe they can't get somewhere else.
Great.
So I think for the most part, the question you brought up is key for every business, right? Now that this virus has come upon us, a lot of businesses, I believe, are going to start changing their practices. And I
Mhm.
think the one obvious thing that a lot of companies are probably going to change is just making sure they're accessible online,
Mhm.
making
Absolutely.
sure that those transactions are very simple, making sure that they're seen online.
Mhm.
And so, one thing that we have set up is if you happen to go on our website, our website is technically able to offer a lot of our clients anything they need. So when it comes down to if you want to purchase flowers, if you
Mm.
want to purchase jewelry, if you want to purchase gift baskets, if you want to purchase keepsakes, and then as I mentioned with our website, if you want to live stream, you can go onto the website and watch the live stream funeral service on the website. So I think again, this is just all across the board. I feel like more businesses, of course, are going to strengthen
Mhm.
their online presence, and so it's something that we were already doing, thankfully, because
Okay.
what happened to us is when we got into this situation, it wasn't like, oh, let me scratch my head and figure out what I'm going to do now. We were already doing this.
Okay.
And like I said, I mean, my thing has always been to just think about how can we improve what can we do next to just improve the dynamics of how this business is run.
And I can imagine some of those add-on value items, which I never really thought about, probably are very advantageous right now.
Right.
I actually have a friend I was talking to yesterday who said she's been learning some things like this that didn't, and she's not a business owner. She just knows that there may be times where she may need things. And it's good to know that kind of information. So it's very good that you're sharing that that's been available all along, but it's even more important today. So looking at some of those add-on opportunities online
Yeah.
might be a good resource for many of you business owners out there. Um, let's see. I wanted to know if you have any advice for family-owned businesses. As you mentioned, this business has been around for 25 years, and it started with your father, but it's definitely a family-owned business. How has that worked? How is it working today, and how do you see it working in the future?
As far as our dynamic, I love to be honest with people, because at the end of the day, I want to make sure anybody that's listening to me could say, he really added some valuable
Mhm.
information based off of my experience. So I'm always going to tell you based off my experience. Now, with family-owned business, it can get complicated
Mhm.
if you don't have your things in order. Family is a very sensitive subject when you're working with family because it's like, where do you cross the line?
Mhm.
But one thing I can definitely say is because we've set it up to where, for instance, my father runs the businesses overseas, I run the business over here,
Mhm.
and then the other location that we're working on, I'll have one of my other brothers is going to run that.
Okay.
So we've set it up to where everyone is working on their own projects.
Okay.
Um, for us, fortunately, I can say that has worked out. Um, and then the other thing with family business is just to make sure you have your ducks in a row in terms of making sure you have a succession plan.
Mhm.
So if you're in a family business, making sure whoever the original owner was, making sure there is a succession plan so that if that individual passes away, then who will take over what percentage of the business? Because you also see situations where in family business, the individual that started the company passes away, and then there's family members that are completely confused.
Mhm.
And then what happens
Mhm.
is there's, fighting and bickering about what do we
Knowing
do now.
what? Mhm.
One of the
Mhm.
biggest things I can tell you with family businesses, that's one of the biggest challenges is families not having their ducks in a row so that when they pass away, how that stuff is passed along or who acquires what. So, or who buys what. So again,
Mhm.
that I would say anybody in a family business is to just make sure you have a structure set up for your succession plan so that either your children take over the company, and if they do, how much do they purchase it from the
Mhm.
stuff like that. That's really, really crucial.
It's very interesting you bring that up too, because there has been some talk about succession plans in different workshops that I've gone to, but nobody ever wants to really think through, what happens if a person is deceased. But being in the business that you are, you have to be very realistic about that possibility and probability. But so it's a good idea to think that way, and it's interesting that y'all were able to have those conversations very early on.
Yeah, yeah, it's key, and just in life in general. So another thing I want to just put out there, like I tell people all the time, the individuals that are the most successful in this world is not really by coincidence. Most of the individuals are they're ultra wealthy. If they have one thing in common, and that one common thing is they're planners. They
Mhm.
didn't just one day become wealthy or successful because they dreamed it or just got lucky. It's really because they sat down and they planned their life to be this way.
Mhm.
And so the reason I say that is because anyone out there can technically plan to have their lives structured a certain way if you sit down and really try to figure it out. But unfortunately, a lot of people just live their lives day to day, not trying to plan or
Mhm.
figure things out. So if you don't have anything set, then you don't really know what to do to get there.
Or face realities. I think it's also a challenge. And we talked a lot about emergency plans here. We found that a lot of businesses, and I might be one of them as well, who had sort of a either didn't have an emergency plan or had a limited plan in Florida, mostly based on hurricanes, but really were just not prepared for this kind of scenario.
Right.
I want to ask you, did you have an emergency plan? But just also thinking and having business as you plan, think about the potential of an end or a potential end, making sure we are realistic about that as well.
Right. So, being in business, at least for us, one of the crucial things that I've learned early on in business when I first started is, businesses, of course, are like the stock market. There's months where you do great, and then there's months where you might not be doing great.
Right.
The biggest thing, of course, for us has been, just to have, I'm gonna be black and white with you, an emergency fund where you have cash on hand, or you have a line of credit, so that if you do run into a situation where you're short on cash flow or you're short on payroll, you're not going to be in a situation where you're having to refinance your home just to cover those expenses. So, for those of you that don't have cash on hand, then, a line of credit from your bank is always going to be good, something that's just there, so that if you are in those situations, it'll hold you off for a couple months so that you can kind of rebound.
Okay.
So that's my suggestion.
And during this, have you had to apply for any grants or loans, or are you finding yourself in that situation?
So we did it because it was available. So so we're
Right.
doing it because it's available.
Got it. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Right.
Have you heard anything yet? Because we heard this morning on MSNBC that apparently it will be over by today. The money will be over by today. So sorry to be the bearer of bad news.
No, so it's funny. We must have been watching TV at the same time this morning, because I woke up this morning and I was just getting ready, and I really don't watch the news like that, but I turned it on and I watched a little bit of news, and I noticed that they said yes, that either I think the money was running out, and that at this point it's done with. Now they're going to try and get some more funding, but I think at this point said it was, but we had already put in the application anyway. So,
I know. I put in application. I was on a workshop conference call yesterday with a woman who works for SBA, was like, well, we're at 301 billion at this point, so it'll probably be done by tomorrow. I can't get all the faces on that call. It wasn't funny, but it was, because we were all like, well, oh well. What's the next plan?
But I knew that was coming, though, because you can only give so much money for someone. You know what I mean?
And they were opening it up for people. This has just been my side complaint. They're opening it up for companies that have employees of 500 or more. 500 or less. I'm thinking that is not a small business.
Right.
That is not a small business. So, hate to be the bearer of bad news, but all will be gone today. Hopefully, we'll have some more coming in, and there's some other loan and grant opportunities out there. So please, keep your eyes open. There may be some opportunity there. So we've talked also on this show a little bit about feelings. Most business owners right now are confused, scared, not sure what their time frame is in terms of, from today to if I can open my doors, or if I can stay afloat for the months that we're out, or if I'll even be able to open my doors. What are you feeling? You're not facing the same challenges, but what are you feeling during this time?
I mean, we're talking feelings, emotions. So let's just hit on that. I'm very saddened about everything that's going on. Watching the fact that people can't attend church. I mean, who would have ever thought in a million years that you can't go to church? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And most of our business is in church. So that's why I say that most of our business is in church, where we're having to go to church for funerals. So for us, the one good thing, though, is we do have a chapel here on site that's pretty large. And so majority of our clients have decided, hey, well, if we're going to do anything, it's convenient, we'll do everything here at the funeral home. But, like I said, it's such a tough time for everybody, because what they really would have wanted is, of course, if anything, if you're going to have someone die, the biggest thing you'd want is, okay, well, let's, gather together in memory of the individual, and, kind of like share this moment together, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
But you're talking about people can't do that anymore. And
Absolutely. And
this
that
will
may
be
not
something.
be the case for quite some time, truth be told, because I read
Yeah,
an article yesterday that said, or I think it was in the New York Times, that talked about potentially the 6 foot distance being, um, uh, it won't resolve itself until 2022.
right. So I heard the same. I heard like even if they do open up the economy, what they'll do is still restrict certain things.
Absolutely.
Those things will be things like concerts. I heard
hmm hmm
sporting events. So who knows if they'll allow churches, and who knows if they'll,
Absolutely. Because
you know what I
churches
mean?
have large congregations, and it's a great place to be, but is it a
Yeah,
safe place to be right now?
right.
So you're very much. I think it's very interesting also that you two have been able to use sort of this online platform as a method of moving forward as well.
Mhm.
Well, it was wonderful to meet you. I won't take up any more of your time. I'm sure you're very busy. But
We'll be, we'll,
I mean, I don't mean that in a
no, I know you.
driving sort of way. I apologize. That was inappropriate. But before we go, can you tell us where we can find you?
Okay, so for anyone that is looking for me, you can find me at St. Ford's Funeral Home in North Miami Beach. Where address is 16480 Northeast 19th Avenue. If you'd like to give us a call, you can call us at 305-940-1428. Of course, we're online at stfordsfuneralhome.com, and we're on social media, Facebook, Instagram, same name, St. Ford's Funeral Home.
Thank you so much again. It was
Thank
wonderful
you.
chatting with you and sharing your knowledge and information in terms of small business. And I will make that correction. I promise. I'm gonna make it, fix it. Thanks so much, and you have a great.
Okay, bye.
So I want to say good day to everyone. This is the last show for this week. Next week we will have Tissa McGee. We're going to have who is a consultant and a candidate. We're going to have Kimra Major Morris. She's an attorney. And then we are looking to see if we can also have a stylist, because I think as many of us have had a chance to talk about, especially for women who are trying to still look good during all of this, that is an interesting business to be in right now. So I want to say thank you again to Evan St. Ford. I think his information was very powerful and very helpful for many families and family-owned businesses like his. And we hope very, very soon that we might. I haven't had a chance to meet him personally, but hopefully very soon. I hope that I will. So you have a great day. I hope to see you again on Tuesday. We will send out our next guest, information about our next guest, and we hope you'll tune in right away. Thanks, and have a great weekend, everyone. Bye-bye.